Welcome to Discovery Weekly, the bonus show from the podcast Discovery Show, where we talk about all of the other things we've discovered throughout the week that don't have anything to do with podcasts most of the time. I'm Kirk.
I'm Zach, and we are thrilled to have our friend and an amazing podcast host, Paul from Varmints, is joining us this week.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We've been looking forward to this for a long time.
Heck yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
One more announcement. As you probably have realized by getting to this point in the show, you have listened to our new theme music, and that was done for us by Mr. Billy Mays III, also known as Infinite Third. Definitely check out his profile. Check out what he's doing. He streams on Twitch. Amazing guy. We'll have everything linked in the show notes. But yeah,
shout out Infinite Third.
Yeah, we wanted to have some new stuff going this year.
Yeah, no, and it's I don't know. I feel like it's so awesome to be able to have unique music that is made specifically for our show. It's awesome. It's exciting. I love that we're able to do that. It's a very awesome opportunity. So
this week, I held off as long as I could from talking about it, but it's time to talk about NASA's Perseverance rover. I think that everybody who has listened to the show knows that we are really into all of the kind of the stuff happening right now in space and all the science behind it. And this stuff with Perseverance rover is pretty amazing. And we're early enough now that everybody can watch what's happening. So it is supposed to arrive on Mars on the 18th of February.
Oh, it's that close.
Yeah, we're really close now. It launched summer of last year. And it has been going like millions of miles away, and it's going to get there in February. And apparently everything about this is going to be wild because they're calling the descent of the rover 7 minutes of terror, because essentially it comes in so hot because it comes in at 12,000 miles per hour.
Wow.
And it's 7 minutes of it just going. I guess once it hits atmosphere, it's 7 minutes until it hits the planet. And so that's that moment of like, okay, this has been traveling.
Everything going to break?
Yeah. Is this all going to fall apart here in the last seconds?
Oh, man.
So what it does is it flies in and then it drops a parachute, and then the parachute kind of coasts for a little bit, and then it drops the rover, and then the rover lands. And the rover is also carrying something extremely cool. It is carrying a little tiny solar-powered helicopter.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this one with the drone?
Yes.
What?
It has a little solar-powered helicopter underneath it, because and first of all, some of the scientists are calling this essentially like a Wright brothers moment. We have never flown anything on another planet.
Ooh, I never thought about that.
And the atmosphere is 1/100th as dense as ours. So flying even off the ground would be like flying at 100,000 feet on Earth. And so the amount of force that it needs for them to even get off the ground is crazy. So there was tons of science involved in trying to figure out how to even make this little helicopter fly. But the premise of it is you send the helicopter and it can take aerial photos and things like that, but also it can grab samples and bring it back to the rover. And it has like prompted this entire, I guess, like technical understanding and then testing cycle. So right now in Iceland, they're testing new drones that could be like the next iteration of this. And they're going to like fly it over. I think they said it's like a 30-mile patch of like volcanic rock. And they're going to have it go try and take samples. So really, this is like we're seeing the first of something. There's going to be a drone on board this thing that's going to separate and fly around on Mars. And all of that is a first and took a crazy amount of science. And all of it is just so exciting to me. And everybody, I'm sure there's going to be cool feeds from it. I'm sure there's going to be news coming out all about this. And just keep an eye out, because it should be another pretty cool thing with Perseverance rover.
I'm really curious as to like, a lot of the discoveries that we have in science like come from, trying to make innovations for with NASA and stuff like that. I'm really curious if we might get some innovation in flight stuff, because we're having to learn how to fly in a much denser atmosphere. That that's fascinating to me. Maybe we can have more efficient helicopters or, drones or whatever. That sounds really cool.
Yeah, could be.
And I'm really glad that I had a NASA thing I was going to bring as well. So I'm glad I didn't bring it because then it would have been just the NASA show.
So I apologize if you've already mentioned it, but do they know like exactly what day and time that these 7 minutes are going to happen so you can like hop on YouTube and watch it?
Supposedly, it's supposed to happen. They're supposed to arrive on February 18th is when they're supposed to enter Mars atmosphere at 12,000 miles per hour. So should be a pretty interesting day on the 18th because there could be some really cool stuff happening afterwards.
Yeah, and they've been really cool at, doing live streams on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. It's so cool to be able. They've been so open now with the way that we can live stream everything, and it's been really cool to be able to watch all of these launches and stuff like that. I'll get on Twitch to watch someone play video games, and because we're in Florida, I'll see, hey, launch in 3 minutes. So I'll just walk outside like, hey, look, there's a launch. It's so cool. Hey, Paul.
Yes, sir.
I know that we kind of sprung things up on you about, some discoveries, but you mentioned something before we started recording that I feel like we have to talk about.
Okay. Yeah, I do. I also do have a discovery, but we can talk about this.
We have to talk about this.
Okay,
it's a very important thing because you didn't tell us the answer, and I feel like me and Zach's brains will explode if we don't learn how porcupines have sex. We need to know, like right now.
I do. I can't stop thinking about it ever since you mentioned it.
Well, I mean, it's a little bit anticlimactic, but there's a few interesting things that happens. Okay. So the female will get up in the tree and she'll start making noise and she'll start producing a scent that attracts males. She will not drop an egg until 2 males have arrived. And then those 2 males start fighting. Those fights get really brutal, by the way. They could like tear each other's ears off and stuff. They get really bad. But eventually 1 male will win the fight. She will voluntarily ovulate and get ready to mate. Mm-hmm. And then to lure her closer to woo the female, the male will pee. It will shoot pee up to 6 feet away.
What?
Onto the female.
That's interesting.
I'm trying to think of a way to make a golden shower joke, and
it's just there. I mean, it's just that's what it is.
Mr. Ross says that's exactly how I met my wife in the chat. So,
what's funny is he said that before you got to the pee part, but I'm just gonna act like he said that afterwards.
So, after all that's said and done, all the fighting's done, all the peeing is done, and the female decides, okay, I am in fact ready to mate. She will take her tail and kind of flip it back over the spines and flatten the spines down so that when the male gets ready to do his thing, he doesn't get a chest full of quills.
Interesting.
The other thing, too, is when the babies are born, their quills are really, really super soft, like hair, which is going to make life easy on the mom delivering those pups. And within the hour of being born, those quills are stiff and hard and battle ready.
That is crazy.
That quick? Wow.
That quick. That's 1 hour.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
I bet you there's some discovery there on like what the molecular makeup of something like that is, where it's like soft and then immediately gets like rigid and sharp. Like that sounds like something. God dang it. I'm gonna have to stop talking.
This whole
everything I say, been, everything I say.
Yeah, it's been pretty good so far.
So I found this amazing article about bears with jobs. All right. So these bears have a job, and I want to get to it. A bear that breaks into someone's campsite now understands that they can get this really calorie-dense food. So bears are all the time going to campsites, breaking into people's coolers. There's a story in this article that talks about like this. The lady that wrote it was at like a kids camp, and she was a counselor, and they went to like the kitchen area, and everything had been raided. It had broken through a window, gotten into the refrigerator, and eaten everything. It was just like, she said, it looked like a war zone. There was stuff everywhere. But it's very dangerous, not only for the people, but for the bears, because they get, really used to it, because they know they can get the food easily. And then eventually, wildlife control is going to get called on them, and they might end up even being euthanized or something. So it's dangerous not only for people who might run across the bear as they're getting into their things, but it's also dangerous for the bears. A bear that breaks into someone's campsite now understands that they can get really high calorie dense food, and it's a huge payoff for relatively little effort compared to spending hours picking berries. But there is this place that takes bears that have been relocated for these reasons. Like a bear that is a repeat offender, a lot of times will have to be captured, and a lot of times they'll take it and they'll let it go somewhere far away. But there's some of them that there's so much repeat offenders. There's in this article, they even mentioned they let a bear out 100 miles away, and it came back that far to get that easy food.
Wow.
But there's a center called the Wolf Discovery Center. Well, Grizzly and Wolf Discovery Center. And it's near Yellowstone in Montana. And the center is a nonprofit educational facility that houses grizzly bears unable to survive in the wild for one reason or another. It is a home for 3 small packs of captive-born wolves, a handful of injured raptors, and 5 American river otters. When a wildlife official from anywhere in the American West, Alaska, or Canada has a nuisance grizzly bear and wants to avoid euthanizing it, the GWDC is often near the top of their call list. So this is where they send those trouble bears. Because, a lot of these wildlife places, they don't want to euthanize the bear if they don't have to. Usually not unless it's posing a very big threat to someone's health. So they give a little bit of a backstory on some of these bears. And I promise I'm getting to what the job is, because it's a great job. Corum, a male grizzly whose weight fluctuates between 550 and 680 pounds, depending on the season, wandered through Montana checking porches for dog kibble. Montana Fish and Wildlife and Parks officials trapped him 3 times before he ended up at the GWDC. Spirit, a female grizzly, couldn't stay away from a golf course in Whitefish. She was relocated 6 times, once as far away as 100 miles away, but she kept finding her way back to that easy source of food before one of her cubs was hit by a car, and then she was finally taken to the facility as well. Corum, Spirit, and 6 other bears that live at the GWDC aren't just wasting away in captivity, though. They have an important job to do. They test containers to determine whether they are bear resistant.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
So this place gets all of these big cooler companies, dumpster companies, garbage can companies, and they've built up this amazing reputation for testing the things and then giving a stamp of approval on whether or not it is bear proof. It's awesome. So every spring, the ranger or the head person at this place begins filling coolers, backpacks, canisters, trash dumpsters sent in by big name manufacturers like Yeti, Cabela's, Pelican, and Igloo with veggies. They put veggies, dog food, fish, honey, and the bear's favorite. What do you think the bear's favorite is? I don't think I would have guessed this. Paul might guess it. We'll see. Let's put him on the spot. Since I haven't done that tonight.
Favorite for bears.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. I was going to say fish, but you already mentioned fish.
Yeah, I would have guessed fish from cartoons, honey. It's not pickles. That's my favorite, but that's not the bear's favorite. They don't like mushrooms or onions, which is interesting.
Hamburger.
But their favorite is peanut butter. They apparently love
Twig's got it.
What? It is peanut butter. Nice. So he says that adding that the bears will eat just about anything else in their quest to pack those 15,000 calories a day that they're supposed to get before hibernating. Once the containers are full of goodies, he puts them in front of the bears, which poke, prod, claw, bite, smash, and sometimes use what he calls the CPR method, which I think we all kind of have seen this.
Yes. I
in
can
movies
visualize it already.
where the bear places their front paws atop a container and just pumps with all of his weight, trying to just break it open, almost as if they're trying to revive the unfortunate object. If the container remains intact to a certain standard, gaps, tears, and holes can't be larger than an inch for trash containers. For food containers, a mere quarter inch makes it fail the test. A sticker depicting a grizzly's head and shoulders and the product certification number. The GWDC is the only testing facility in the world where products can earn a certificate for bear resistance. It's an awesome thing. Then these bears that have, repeatedly gotten in trouble for doing these raids on people's food now get to, for a living, raid people's food.
Yeah.
But in a safe environment.
When we did our episode about brown bears, we talked about that very thing, about how they are used to test these coolers and stuff. And I think with the article, at least the thing I read said was that there's nothing that's bear proof. It's bear resistant. If you leave it out there long enough, the bear is going to get into it no matter what it is.
Yeah, pretty much what they say in here is what they do is 60 minutes. They give the bear access to it for 60 minutes. And and what it is, it's kind of like a threshold, because most bears, after 60 minutes of trying to get into something, they're going to give up and go do something else. So that's their, I guess, their standard, which he says sometimes they have to, okay, the bear was messing with it for 20 minutes. Now we got to make him mess with it for another 40 minutes. So sometimes a bear will get bored after 20 minutes, but they make sure that the bear has been trying to break into this thing for 60 minutes before they give that stamp of approval.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I like to visualize just the testing site with just a bunch of bears trying to get peanut butter inside of a cooler. It sounds pretty great.
Sounds like an awesome YouTube channel or Twitch channel.
Yeah, I could definitely get behind that.
Need to have some goofy music in the background. Like what's the music that they have for those like silly slapstick old British like black and white movies where they're like running around and stuff?
Oh yeah, like the silent movie music.
Yeah, it's gotta be something silly like that. Oh, the bear's trying to break into a cooler or something. That'd be awesome.
I'd watch that.
All right, well, we're going to take a quick break to get a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
This episode is sponsored by the We As Start Talking podcast. The We As Start Talking podcast is a place for great conversations, topics, and stories from people just like you and me. This podcast is focused on changing the world, one conversation at a time.
Each episode features a new guest along with their three hosts. They explore raw, honest, vulnerable, and fun subjects, all in an effort to start talking. I listened to a couple of episodes that were great, and I listened to where they interviewed Gary Arndt, a travel blogger who was he had an amazing story of how he got into it and everything like that, as well as I listened to a 2-part special where they talked to the co-founders of Tether, an app focused on breaking down the walls of toxic masculinity. If you crave truth, compassion, understanding, and real-life stories, and you want to be entertained, then you've come to the right place.
With episodes released on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every week, there's always a great conversation waiting for you. The We As Start Talking podcast is available on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check out the We As Start Talking website at www.weas.ca. That's WEAS.ca. At the website, you can meet the host of We As Start Talking and feel free to reach out to the team and say hello.
The We As Start Talking podcast, making the world a better place, one conversation at a time.
So this is kind of similar to my earlier discovery, but it was just something that I was curious about because I keep reading about the Starlink internet, and basically that's Elon Musk is sending up satellites that are supposed to have enough coverage so that everyone will just have internet all the time, is the theory.
That'd be
And
nice.
it made me start thinking about GPS, because really, when you look at how many things are using GPS every single day now, it's pretty incredible. But I hadn't really dug into how the actual system itself works. So the constellation is actually 27 satellites, and 24 of them are in operation at all times, and 3 are just there in case it fails. This was developed originally by the military, but how it works is through trilateration or triangulation. So it finds your space. You have a phone that has it. It pings to one of the satellites. It pings to 3 different satellites, and they see the difference in time to figure out approximately where you're positioned on the planet. And it is something that like we take so much for granted because it's just a part of our lives now with Google like maps and everything like that. But it's pretty accurate. Have you ever done any of those like running things where it can track your path pretty well?
Yeah. No, it is pretty crazy. I did not know it was just, I don't know why, but in my brain, it feels like it needs to be so much more than 27 because the world's big.
Yeah, the world is big.
But yeah, no, that's fascinating.
Yeah, no,
So,
and
I'd like
they
to
have
see
them.
a picture of like where they're like all spaced because I'm curious, like what it's got to look pretty nuts, like the way that they're all.
Yeah,
Probably
I don't
have
see
to
anything with their
moving in
orbits
sync and stuff.
But yeah, they do have essentially orbit paths, so that in theory, what they want is for you to be like within viewing distance of 3 at any time, no matter where you are. You know what I mean? So they try and
That's
have
what
them
blows my mind is that
rotating
with
around.
just 27, we are basically always within view of 3 of them.
Yeah,
That's what
and
kind of blows my mind.
there's a lot of stuff on these satellites because now we use these for more than that. So each of these satellites also has atomic clocks on them. And first of all, I this is another one of those things I kind of went down a rabbit hole of discovery here. Do you know what an atomic clock is?
No, I was about to ask, what is an atomic clock, Zach?
They literally use radiation to calculate time. So they have figured out that let me figure out which it's caesium 133, and one atom of it in a precisely defined state oscillates 9,192,631,770 times. So they use that to track it. And first of all, don't get me wrong, I don't understand the science of like how you could possibly track this, but that's what they do. They literally use radiation and how quick it oscillates to try to maintain time. Because
That
it's
is
very,
interesting. So is it supposed to be like more stable and like more accurate or something?
yes, you lose less time. So essentially, after 9 million, plus or 9 billion plus oscillations, 1 second has passed, and it's very, very precise, and you don't lose any like time on it. You essentially, I think, let me see if I can find this real quick. They had it on here. I just can't find it. But I think that it would take millions of years. Oh, here it is. With the atomic clocks, there's one in Boulder, Colorado, that you lose. There's a 1 second error within 100 million years.
What?
So like it's very, very close. And it's literally those satellites are essentially, there's a network of atomic clocks that keep time so that everybody on the planet is on the same time. There's 400 atomic clocks that do it. And they are experimenting.
That's my iPhone clock?
Yes. But basically, they're also working on a new type of clock that's based on light. And in theory, it's going to be even better than radiation because they're going to do the same thing, measure oscillations of like an atom of light. All of this is like crazy science, but they expect that the deviation on this clock is 1 second in 15 billion years.
Jeez.
So like it's going to be even better.
Can they just say that there's no deviation? Like,
Yeah,
come on.
you could at some point. Nobody's going to see that 15 billion years later. Like they're not going to call you on it. I don't think.
Just to kind of tag on to what you were saying, and I put the link in the chat. If you go to inthesky.org, you can see a real-time map of the world. You can see where every single satellite is right now.
Let me grab this link.
There are a lot of them.
But yeah, it's definitely, we've talked about it a couple times on the show before too, is that one of the current problems they're dealing with is the amount of trash in orbit around the planet, because we've just had so many satellites and we've had so many little projects that haven't gone exactly correctly. And it's pretty crazy to look at that as
that's what I wanted to see, because that's crazy.
we're gonna throw that within the show notes too. So yeah, Paul just showed us this really cool link where you can take a look at how many satellites are directly above your head right now.
Yep. Right now, 92 spacecraft in orbit all over the place.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking at it. Sorry, I got sidetracked now. I'm like hovering over to see what all their names are. Bunch of GPS. They got satellites. They got, see, what's this thing? Lemur 2 Dajara. Navstar 77. I'm going to start naming them all. No, I'm going to stop doing that now. Closing that. No, that's awesome. All right, Paul. So I think that's going to be your discovery now, and then I'll close this out with our Underground Railroad story.
My discovery this week is in the form of a question. I have a question to ask you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to put us on the spot. Okay.
That's right.
Yep.
I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. You were talking about golden kiwis.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah.
Episode, which I really want to try one of those. And I thought to myself, when you guys eat a regular kiwi fruit, do you peel it first?
I don't peel it. I cut it in half and eat it like a ice cream. But I've heard that you can eat it, but I've never eaten the fur. Well, I don't even know if they call it the fur, but it's a furry little berry.
The fuzz, yeah. Kirkland?
No.
So I don't peel it first. I cut it into quarters, and then I like use a sharp knife and just barely shave off the
Wow.
the
You have time for that?
Yeah, that's the way I do it.
I eat
'Cause
those
then
suckers
then
like
I
an
cut it-
apple.
Do you?
Really?
Oh, yeah.
What's it like
You're
eating
an
the fur?
animal.
It's just, I mean, I don't know. There's not much of it.
Do you like eat sunflower seeds and eat the shell too?
Oh, that's different, Kirk. Come on.
Well, I know people that do that. I was just wondering.
You do?
Yeah.
No, I couldn't do that. No, I mean, it's just like eating. I mean, there's a little bit of fuzz there. It's not a big deal. But it's the way I've always eaten them.
Does it
I'm going to
taste
try
like-
that next time.
Yeah, I'm trying it for sure.
I mean, but I also like when I eat an apple, I eat the core too. So I'm weird like that.
I've definitely eaten like an entire apple before. It was mostly an experiment, but I've definitely done it.
All right. I just wondered
Do you eat the belly button?
of the kiwi.
Yeah.
No, there's like that one part of the kiwi that's completely inedible,
Yeah.
like hard and just you can't eat it. And that I don't eat that.
Belly button. It kind of looks like a belly button.
Yeah, the belly button. I don't eat the belly button, but the rest of it, absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, bits is like like peach fuzz. It's not that bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll try it for sure. Yeah, I could. I don't know. Can't be that bad.
Interesting. Well, guys, when this comes out, it's going to be the beginning of Black History Month. And I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second because all I know is that when I went to school, I didn't learn near enough about Black history at all. Like, at all. And I realize that now as an adult, going back and having to learn it myself. And shame on us for not teaching it so that we don't. And I feel like that is part of the reason that there's so much racism that still exists, because we didn't learn from our freaking mistakes and see how stupid it was. I don't want to get too much into that, but yes, for sure, that's the way I feel. But recently, by the way, one of my discoveries, I listened to a book on Audible because it was for free during MLK Day. And I listened to a book, I think it was called The Radical King. And it was about him, and it was read by these amazing voice actors. There was only one that took me out of it a little bit, and it was because Wanda Sykes was one of the readers.
Sure.
And that one did take me out just a little bit when she's like quoting Martin Luther King, but it's Wanda Sykes. And it's like, I know you're not being funny, but you've got that voice and everything you say sounds
Yeah, I could see that.
But no, it was an amazing. I learned so much about this guy. Like, he was amazing, and I realized that I knew nothing at all about this man. And anyway, with that said, my discovery that I just found today that I thought was fascinating, not only is awesome, but it also makes me very proud to be a Mexican. The Underground Railroad didn't just run north to Canada, but it also had a strong path down to Mexico. Researchers estimate that 5,000 to 10,000 people escaped from bondage into Mexico. Maria Hammock is the one that they're talking about a lot of her research. She's writing her dissertation right now. This is from a history.com article. She's at the University of Texas at Austin, but she says that she thinks the actual number is probably much higher than that, because these were clandestine routes that if you got caught, you'd be killed and lynched. So most people didn't leave a lot of records, which makes a lot of sense. And there's some evidence that Tejanos, or Mexicans that were living in Texas, acted as conductors on the southern route by helping people get to Mexico. This is a very fascinating article. I'm not going to read all of it, but I do want to touch on a few of the points. It says fugitive enslaved people got to Mexico in many different ways. Some went on foot, while others rode horseback or snuck aboard ferries bound for the Mexican ports. Stories spread about enslaved people who crossed the Rio Grande, dividing Texas from Mexico by floating on bales of cotton. And several Texas newspapers reported this in July 1863, that 3 enslaved people had escaped this way. Even though it's logistically impossible, the imagery of floating to freedom on a symbol of slavery was actually very strong. That is very fascinating.
Yeah,
and
I could see that.
Slaveholders knew that enslaved people were going to Mexico, and the U.S. tried to get Mexico to sign a fugitive slave treaty, just as the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 had compelled free states to return escapees to the South. So basically they were saying, hey, if you catch a slave that's escaped, you need to return them because they're property. So messed up. The U.S. wanted Mexico to return escaped slave people to the U.S., but Mexico refused to sign such a treaty, insisting that all enslaved people were free as soon as they stepped foot on Mexican soil. Viva Mexico! Hammock and the researchers have also identified a mixed race family from Alabama, and I kind of did this one because our boss's name is in here, and I think it was crazy. A mixed race family from Alabama who moved to southern Texas near the Rio Grande and helped enslaved people escape to Mexico. The wife, Matilda Hicks, was a formerly enslaved woman, and her husband, Nathaniel Jackson, was the son of the man whose plantation she used to work for. So this was one of the families literally moved there to help conduct people to safety across the border. And there's a lot more to this story and in this article, but it was just one of those things. Like, I had no clue, and I learned today about the Underground Railroad that used to go to Mexico and how a lot of slaves would go to Mexico where they could be free. And I just thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, definitely is. It's incredible.
Wow, that is really cool.
Well, guys, I will encourage you all to go learn a little bit about Black history, because it's fascinating. It's challenging as an American, specifically as a white person, but it's something that we all need to learn and to teach our kids. I think that's something that I've been trying my best to do, which is, it's difficult because it's like, okay, what have you learned at school? What have you not learned? I need to help fill in these gaps because I think it's very important.
Yeah, no, I think it's important always. Well, we'd like to thank one more time our guest, Paul from Varmints. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been absolutely great having you here. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
It was a blast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming on here. And remember, guys, you can eat a kiwi like an apple if you're an animal.
But not the belly button.
But not the belly button. Have a great week, guys. Bye.
Bye.
This was a podcast from the Podfix Network. You can check out more shows like it at podfixnetwork.com.